My name is John Schneider. Again, welcome everyone. I'm the BetterWorks CMO, and I really couldn't be more excited to be here with you today. Today, we're exploring the game-changing role of skills and AI in shaping talent strategies that don't just keep up, but lead the way. And we are thrilled to have two extraordinary thought leaders with us. Ben Eubanks, Chief Research Officer at Lighthouse Research. He's a highly respected researcher and also an author, and he's someone that lives at the intersection of data and organizational transformation. Sandra Loughlin, Chief Learning Scientist at EPAM, a company at the forefront of software engineering and digital innovation. Sandra's insights have appeared in outlets like Forbes and CEO magazine, and she was recently named a global leader in consulting by Consulting magazine. Together, they're going to guide us through a session that's part roadmap, it's part reality, and it's going to be all about actions you can take. We will get to the heart of why skills matter now more than ever and how to make them a cornerstone of your strategy. This isn't just a webinar, it's meant to be a conversation that will challenge you on how you think and how you approach things moving forward. BetterWorks empowers organizations to address workforce alignment, burnout, and employee disengagement with modern performance management tools that drive measurable results. Companies like Rivian, Colgate-Palmolive, and Intuit use BetterWorks to align teams, build trust, and achieve their boldest goals. People fundamentals specifically exist to provide HR professionals such as all of you on this call with the tools and knowledge to shape your workplace for the better. We believe in your ability to make an organizational impact by addressing the opportunities and issues you face today. Whether you're a seasoned attendee of People Fundamentals through webinars such as today, or you found us through our popular LinkedIn newsletter or podcast series of the same name, we are thrilled to have you today. As a People Fundamentals member, I would like to call out today that you are a lifelong learner. We already know it because you're here. And that's why you can't miss the 4th annual Empower HR on March 20th. You can join an expected 5,000 HR professionals as we dive into how to shape teams that aren't just ready for the future, but they are defining it. And just to give you a sampling of what's in store for Empower HR, we have Charles Duhigg, Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Power of Habit. He will be teaching us how to form habit loops to take your workforce from stuck to unstoppable. Val Wright, she's a strategy and innovation expert who's authored 3 books, Thoughtfully Ruthless, Rapid Growth Done Right, and Words That Work. She will draw on her experience launching iconic products like the Xbox and the Amazon fashion line and share how you can become the ultimate executive creating rapid growth for your organizations. We have a powerhouse lineup of HR leaders backing our 2 keynote speakers, and you're going to be getting actionable insights throughout. And our CEO is going to be unveiling some of our key insights from our State of Performance Enablement Report 2025, the 4th edition, used by tens of thousands of people to gain insight into how to manage their performance moving forward. In addition to that, I would like to urge everybody to consider nominating your company or an HR leader there for a Make Work Better award that we are handing out at Empower HR. We will celebrate your team's achievements during the event, publicize your success following the event, and there's no cost to submitting. All we ask is that you inspire others with your innovation and impact in HR. So with that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. Ben Eubanks has a remarkable talent for taking complex topics and turning them into compelling and actionable insights. His best-selling book, Talent Scarcity, tackled one of HR's biggest challenges, finding and retaining quality workers. And his first book was literally the first book on artificial intelligence for HR. I met Ben back in 2022 at HR Tech, and what struck me then and continues to inspire me now is his passion for people and purpose. Just recently, he returned from Guatemala, where he worked with young adults on career counseling and development. That same commitment to building better opportunities for people is woven into everything he does, including the incredible research you're going to hear about today from him. So please help me in welcoming Ben to the webinar. And now also, we have another equally stellar speaker. Joining Ben is Sandra Loughlin, the Chief Learning Scientist at EPAM Systems. She is a learning scientist and organizational psychologist specializing in skills-based employee enablement and AI-driven transformation. At EPAM, she leads the company's educational strategy and helps clients replicate EPAM's award-winning AI-enabled and skills-based culture. With EPAM's deep roots in AI, Sandra's expertise makes her one of the best people to learn from on this topic. On a personal note, Sandra is a passionate gardener. She wasn't before, and now she has a green thumb. She's a convert. Also, she's a baseball fan, and she names her dogs after Yankees players. So we're going to ask Sandra as she comes to the stage. Welcome, Sandra. Can you share with us a little bit about your two pooches and what their names are?
Yes. So, yes, I had to promise to love the Yankees. I did not grow up a Yankees fan, but when I said my wedding vows, I promised to love my husband and the Yankees. So, we're proving it every day. So our first dog was Mattingly. Big, my husband's like biggest player, a fan growing up. And then we have Jeter and Mariano. Mariano Rivera is my favorite player. So like old school Yankees.
Okay, coming from a Dodgers fan, I can say I respect those names that were used. Well, thank you for joining us, both of you, and I'm going to let the two of you take this over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. And hey, everybody, glad to be here with all of you. Glad to be here with Sandra. Looking forward to a fun conversation today, sharing some data with you, sharing some perspectives with you. We have some good things to share, and hopefully shedding some light on what's happening with skills, with AI, and how those things are coming together in a way that is powerful, that is an opportunity, not just something scary, as some of the headlines painted out there, and I'm excited to get into all that. So I'm going to kick us off really quickly here and then get into some conversation with Sandra, and we'll get some good perspectives there. I love to start out by telling a quick story and casting a vision using that story. So many years ago, I don't know if you know what this is, but this is actually a high jump setup. I did high jump one time. My track coach said, hey, the high jumpers hurt today. Who can do it? It was one of those things where everybody else kind of stepped back and I was left in front. And so I got volunteered to do the high jump. I did not do it well, and I never did it again, was never asked to. But I love this because the history of the high jump is actually pretty unique. You've seen anyone do it, they run and they jump backwards over the bar in this weird sort of contortioning sort of thing. Well, when the high jump started, it was not like that at all. People run and jump headfirst forward over the bar. And 1968, there was a change. A gentleman named Dick Fosberg came along and he started doing what they call the Fosberg flop, where you jump backwards over the bar. And everybody laughed at him. Look at how silly this is. He doesn't even know how to do it, until he went to the Olympics and got the gold medal. And then suddenly everyone's tune changed. In the next Olympics, 4 years later, the majority of the competitors in the high jump used what they affectionately termed the Fosberg flop in honor of Dick Fosberg, because he developed that jumping style. And I love that because it tells us that even when things change, sometimes it's not a bad change. Sometimes it's a good change. They were able to set new records, reach new heights. And as we talk today, we're going to talk about things that involve change, frankly. Even I was like, Sandra, I was laughing at your question a minute ago when they're like, when John kicked us off with this question, and you're immediately already throwing in there, oh, by the way, is that an AI workforce, a human workforce, some combination of the two? Already thinking about this is a bigger thing than we've ever probably imagined when we started our careers in HR, and it's a big question. And so we're excited today to dive into that with you. So I'll be talking about some of the data that we have on tap. I'll bring some data points, some things we're finding there. And the research covers both workers and employers. So we'll hear from some things that your people are thinking, your people are saying and are telling us in the research, as well as some of the things that employers like all of you are saying that you're working on, you're struggling with, you're challenged by when it comes to managing your people, understanding their skills, and leveraging them for the best possible outcomes, not just for the organization, but for each of those individuals as well. Are we setting them up for success and performance on career paths? Are we helping them find the work that's meaningful to them? We're getting into those things that really matter. So just a quick snippet on that global research. And just to show you, I always get the question if I forget to include this. Someone's like, well, yeah, who'd you ask? This just puts that to rest. This is a good, solid data point on what's happening in the bigger world out there. So Sandra and I are going to cover three big things. Number one, we're going to talk about why skills and why now. Why is this a conversation that matters? Why is it a conversation that you should be not just listening to, participating in and potentially leading at your company. We're going to talk about some of the approaches out there already that are there, some of the good things, some of the bad things, and maybe the things that are kind of ugly we need to steer clear of. And then we're going to hopefully give you some input, some insights on the value and the benefits of really approaching this the right way. Sandra has a really powerful story to tell around that, about some of the things that EPAM is doing and some great lessons learned. And I'll be taking my own notes as we go through that part and start learning about that and talking about some of the impacts of doing this well. So Sandra, love for you to join me here. Of all the things we talked about today, there's a wide range. We can tell in any number of things. And I'd love to hear from you. Why do you think skills is the most important conversation we need to be having right now?
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for doing all this research. It's fascinating to see. So skills has always been important, right? We always wanted to have skilled people with the right skills, in the right jobs in organizations. The problem is that we didn't really have a lot of data on skills. We kind of had an idea of what we wanted the skills to be. That was kind of like the job, competency matrices. So we kind of had defined the denominator, if you will. What are the skills we're looking for? But we never had a really solid way of figuring out the skills of any one individual. And what's happening now with this whole skills movement is that the data and the AI and the technology now exist to let us understand that. And that's very, very important. It's important, in any context, because, if you can imagine all the inefficiencies, like people in roles that are not quite right for them, jobs where you're doing duplicative work, people who are not engaged because they're just, their most important skills, the skills they care about the most are not being utilized, right? There's so much inefficiencies in how we function today. So doing skills just to make work better and help employees realize their potential and help drive business outcomes, that's one thing. But AI has changed the game for us altogether. As AI is coming in, it's going to dramatically shift the way that people work, the skills that they need, how jobs are architected, how we match people to work. And until we understand the skills of our people, we will not be able to effectively and quickly respond to the pressures coming from AI agents and our competitors.
Goodness. I think that's a great setup. If we don't start doing this, if our leaders aren't leaning forward, if they aren't thinking about those things, we're missing a chance, right, to tap into the good things our people are bringing to the table. And so a couple of stats here just to reinforce some of the things that you were sharing there, Sandra. For example, one of the big headlines from the research we did was that 6 out of 10 executives said that their workforce is not highly adaptable to change. And that's a scary place to be. If I'm the leader of an organization and I don't have confidence in the ability of my people to adapt, to change, to respond to market conditions, to respond to disruptive technologies, to respond to whatever we need them to be able to adapt to, that creates a weird situation where we can't leverage our people's best. We can't tap into their strengths. We can't make sure that we're doing our best work and their best work day to day. Not only that, but on the other side of that, our people are concerned. Our workforces are truly worried about what AI is going to do. They're seeing the same headlines that we are. And while some of us may be a little nervous, some of us are also excited about it. But the people, the workers, they're generally a little trepidation, we'll say, around this. So 7 out of 10 are concerned that their skills, specifically the skills they use to do work today, are going to change. And that's going to disrupt their ability to earn income, to feed their family. They're casting this vision, and our brains are wired to think the worst. You know that. You call your spouse, they don't answer. You're like, oh, go. What happened to them? They just had their ringer turned off. It wasn't anything bad, but our brains immediately go to the worst case scenario. And so educating on this, talking about this as openly as you can, that's not a bad thing to be thinking about. The thing that excites me, though, is that when we ask workers, hey, if you're worried about this, what could you do about it? And they see training, upskilling, the development and growth of skills, us helping cast a vision for their career path, those sorts of things that we do have control over. They see that as a way to hedge against that. They see that as a way to help them transition, a way to adapt, a way to overcome some of that potential disruption that's out there. And one of the things that I want to reinforce is that we can be terrible at responding to problems that seem like they're slow moving. this AI conversation feels like it's been going for a while. It's going to continue going for a while longer. And so we don't really react in the moments. And I want to encourage you that you should be doing something about this, whether it's a full-blown panic attack, probably not. But you should be doing something around this, trying to understand what skills your people have, trying to keep tabs on those things, trying to tell them about the skills that are important to the future of your business. If you're not doing those things, then we're missing a chance again to bring them along this journey instead of feeling like this is being pressed upon them. And this last stat here, the majority of companies, and if you have not done this, don't worry, you're probably in good company. The majority of companies have not yet looked at what jobs, what tasks, what skills in the business are at risk for automation of AI. And because of that, many of them can feel a little bit out of sorts, a little bit unsure about what's next. So if you have not done that, you're in good company, but this hopefully today will be your encouragement to take a step in that direction. Yeah, we'll talk some more about some of the practical ways that fits in just a little while. Now, Sandra, I'm going to share on this, and then I got to ask you a question because I saw a piece you wrote recently, a piece you wrote recently. I wanted to ask you about that. So this is one of the images I've really loved to share. This is a big piece of research that was done a couple of years ago. They've done it multiple times over the years. This is another research firm, and they look at the S&P 500. Okay, and the value there. So back in 1975, the vast majority of value in that group of companies, the 500 largest companies on the stock exchange, those companies, the vast majority of their value was in actual tangible assets, plants, equipment, resources, tools, land, all those sorts of things. And over time, you see that steadily has flipped, has inverted. And today, only about 10% of that value is there. Well, what does intangible assets include? Things like intellectual property, patents, research, all the knowledge and skills of their people, I would argue, all of those sorts of things that feel intangible, but are truly valuable at the end of the day. And Sandra, the thing that was tied in here for me is one of the things around skills that is this, it irks me when I hear it, and I feel like it might you as well, is people often talk about skills only as if they're a technical thing. The technical skill, the ability to code, the ability to fix this widget, the ability to do those things. And yet I feel like that's a very narrow look because there's other types of skills beyond the technical that should matter. What are your thoughts on that?
100%, right? And moreover, it's not just that they matter, they are measurable. Right? Like some of the most critical skills that explain business outcomes are the soft or human or durable skills, things like empathy and communication and leadership. I don't want to go too far down this route because I can, but I'm an empiricist. Like I believe that you can measure pretty much anything pretty well. And that is absolutely true of durable skills. And so it's not just that they are there, they're important, and we can learn how to capture and then develop them.
Goodness. Yeah, we'll have to come back to that one because I'm a believer that you can measure almost anything too. I think that's probably why we had this kinship. And I'm seeing some good conversation over here in the chat as well about AI, what it's able to do and what it maybe won't do as well. So, all right, I've got a question for all of you. So I want you to chime in here. You can give me an answer, a 1, a 2, or a 3. But take a look at these options here. Let me know which of these worries you the most as a leader who thinks about the talent in your organization. Is it that your workers are not building skills for the future? Number one, is it people take training, but only because it's mandatory, someone makes them do it? Or is it number 3, employees are saying that the team around them, the workforce around them can't handle change? Which one of those worries you the most? I feel like somebody cheated there, gave me all 3 answers. Okay, that may be real. Okay, all the above. All right, that's the cheater answer. Okay, some goodness gracious. Lots of responses here. Lots of 2s, lots of 1s. Okay. All right. Sandra, what about you? Which one of these worries you the most out of these 3?
Well, let me tell you which one doesn't worry me. It's number 2. It doesn't worry me because it's normal, right? A lot of people talk about wanting to learn, and companies give them tons of access to learning material, but how many people take it up? Not as many as say that they would. And that's because people are just busy, right? And the best way for any difficult thing, and learning is one of those things, is to make it like what's in it for me, make it valuable and also make them do it. It's like going to the gym. I want to go to the gym. I should go to the gym. I know it's going to be good for me to go to the gym. I will be much more likely to go to the gym if I'm meeting a friend there because I have that pressure. So number 2 doesn't concern me. Number 1 to me is the biggest concern, right? That is, if you can't build the skills, then of course you can't handle change because you are not going to be prepared with the fundamentals required.
Yeah, completely with you on that one. I like your perspective on the mandatory piece. Like we can find a way to get this done. We can find a way to change behavior. That's the hardest part of our jobs, and yet sometimes it's the fun challenge of our jobs. Is let's get them to do that, gamify it somehow. So I usually pride myself in not being the rain cloud, the doom cloud, but these aren't just hypothetical. These are all actual real stats from that research study I mentioned a minute ago. So 16% of workers, only 60% say their company is helping them develop their skills for future success. Again, many of them said, yes, they're helping me right now. I'm ready right now. They're helping me do the work that I need to do today. But what about 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Are they helping me for that? And unfortunately, the majority say no. As I said, the number one reason people learn is because it's mandatory. Someone's making them do it. And they're not doing it because they're planning to grow their career or for better job performance. They're doing it because someone tells them to. And then last but not least there, same as we saw on the leadership thing, there's some concern. Workers are not sure that the people around them are highly adaptable to change, that they're able to respond to the conditions out there. And that creates a real risk. If I am working on a team with Sandra, we're trying to accomplish something, and I don't really believe that she can handle that task. She can't carry the weight. She's not able to overcome that obstacle. I'm going to not give her what I need to give her to be able to get that done. And it creates the weird politics and infighting and all those other kind of weird nuances that just create friction in the workplace. It's not helping people do their best work or get things done that need to get accomplished. It's just creating real problems. So, goodness gracious. All these things lead us to, we can either do something or we can do nothing. And you're here because you want to do something. You're hanging out with us today. You're spending time investing in your own development as a leader because you want to know something you can do. You want to know an approach you can take. You want to know a strategy you can use. And so we're going to talk about some of those things you should absolutely stop doing and some things to think about, some cautionary tales, and maybe some ideas on what you could do as well to help you take steps in the right direction on this front. And I see we have some awesome questions. So next time I get a moment, I'm going to take a look and see what kind of questions we can jump on. I'll try to address some of those as we're going through today, because there's already a good number of them in there. So let's talk about some of these approaches, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Sandra, I would love to hear from you. You saw me share this in our prep session. And this essentially says, so often we equate years of experience with skill levels. When I worked as an HR leader for a government contractor, the government sets all of these requirements for jobs that they're going to be, what they're willing to pay for, different labor categories. And they were hardcore. You have to have a certain number of years or you do not qualify. There's no workaround. There's no caveat. There's no way to change that or to overcome it. It just is or it isn't. It was very straightforward. And this post here, I pulled from the right, the screenshot, this gentleman has actually created a coding language. He created it from nothing, brand new coding language. And there's a job posting out there saying, we need 4 years of experience in this coding language. It's only a year and a half old. An example of a company saying, we'll just look for senior people by asking for more years of experience. And that's not equitable, right? That doesn't equate to years of experience and skill levels. Sandra, any comments on that one?
Underscore. And it's not just tenure in a job, right? We also make massive and largely incorrect assumptions based on someone's degree, which, there's a lot of issues with that. Talent, accessibility, equity, and there's so many different things. And the other one is job title. We assume that a job title means that a person has certain skills, but all of these assumptions, the saying about it, right? HR has been on the side of not being able to make the best choices, the most informed choices, because we just make assumptions, and that's not necessary anymore.
Goodness. Okay, so as you're sharing there, I'm looking over at some of the questions that came in. Jessica shared a good one. I want to go back to one that Nicole shared earlier. Jessica is talking back to that last set of options I had there, talking about skills of the future. So she said, well, We use the term skills of the future a lot, and we do, absolutely. As a profession, as a community, it's a thing that's often talked about. She said, we don't actually talk about what those skills are. And I completely agree. So for example, from her, during the rise of the internet, coding, computer skills, those became an essential type of skill that people needed to do work. That was a skill of the future, and now it's a skill of today, essentially. So any idea or recommendations, what skills are needed for the future? What should we be focusing on? So I'll start with that one. I'm going to start, Sandra, and then you can kick in.
Yeah, go ahead. Please start.
So, well, obviously today we're talking about the AI piece, how that fits into this bigger picture of skills, how that matters, how that's working. And so I would encourage you, if you don't have any insight into that definitely that is a skill that all of us at least need an awareness of, an area we need some domain knowledge in. You need to know how to use some of the tools that are out there, because they can help you be more capable in the work that you're doing, not just for more productivity's sake, because that doesn't excite me at all. But if it means that I'm doing work that's more meaningful to me, if it means that I'm doing work that the tools can't do, that's a great balance. That's a good example. The other one, to go back to what you were saying a minute ago, Sandra, the human skills of work, those things AI cannot replicate. And if it does it poorly. It doesn't replicate compassion. It doesn't replicate curiosity, dreaming up something new. AI is drawing from what's already there, and it's just doing that. Humans create new things. And so those skills that we have, those are the ones I would argue that we should be investing in ourselves, growing, developing those. It hones and gives us an edge. And we should be thinking about how to hone those into the workforce as well, which is going to be a good tie into Nicole's question in just a minute. Sandra, anything else you want to add to that?
Yes. First off, I want to say there's going to be an entire class of skills we probably don't even know about today. Words that we don't even have, that we will all need to be able to be good at in the relatively near term. No one knows what those are. But there are some things that I'm very confident in. I want to underscore the human skills, definitely. But I also think about self skills. So being able to be aware and reflective, learning how to learn, maybe the most important skill, being able to manage up, right? These are all the kinds of like softer, fluffier things that we just kind of hope for the best that people have. And if they don't, we just give them negative feedback and put them on a pip. But really, like, we've got to be much better and more intentional at teaching and like reinforcing and supporting those. And then beyond that, I would say, I know I hate this term, but critical thinking. I think that in a world where, you don't know what AI is hallucinating, you have to learn how to deconstruct an argument, look for inconsistencies, ask the difficult questions. And none of that has ever been really taught well. And so as a society, we're kind of like, now needing to, as HR leaders, we have to now fix this massive problem that everyone always had, but now it like has been thrown into relief.
It's one of those things where no one else is willing to do it. So it's kind of falling into our lap to make sure we can figure this out and make it go. I was telling someone yesterday that HR is the best and the worst about, there's a brick there on the ground. No one else is going to pick it. I'll just put it in my backpack and I'll carry that one too. And at some point we get so overloaded, we can't get the things done we need to, because we kept adding things to our own plates over time. So that's a real struggle within this field. Okay. I'm going to touch on one more question real quick, because I think it's great, and it sort of encompasses a couple of the ones that came in earlier, and then we'll jump on to the next part of this conversation, because we want to start talking about some of the AI piece, how it infers skills, how we can identify skills, all that, to really make this tangible for all of you. But related to that, Sandra, Nicole said, as we move into a world where skills are needed or new, can't rely on yesterday as proof of skills, less tangible strength. There we go. Great. Such as curiosity, learning agility, increasingly important. How do you anticipate AI measuring things like curiosity, learning agility? How can AI identify those? That's going to be a good segue into our next part. We're talking about some of the AI inferences. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. When it comes to not every single one, but many durable skills, the AI is actually arguably better at assessing those than we are. Let me explain. Let's take empathy. I always talk about empathy. Empathy, like you have a thing where you know it where you see it, right? Like when you define somebody as empathetic by their actions, their behavior, what they say and don't say. That is because we as a society have developed kind of a mental checklist of what an empathetic person does and says. What's fascinating about AI, and you can do it today, is that because AI has been trained on our corpus of knowledge in our culture, it actually has that same mental checklist that ticks off. And so if you were in a Teams meeting, for example, and you were, you finished a session and you wanted to ask AI, hey, did I call this empathetic? Like, what could I do to improve? It will tell you right now, and it's not suffering from some of the biases that we as individuals bring to the table. So again, there's many examples of this, but essentially we're going to train AI to interpret things the way that we on average interpret them. And it's going to be really good at it in many cases.
Yeah, we did an experiment a few years ago and we're able to prove that AI is better than us as humans at looking at qualitative data, qualitative survey data, but that's the same kind of example. It's looking at this conversation that happened and then pulling out the signals. Did the person listen before they spoke? Did the person, talk 90% of the time? Probably not empathetic if that's the case. Like, you start to look for some of those sorts of cues and it gives you an idea of what's possible and what is out there. So good example. Great question, Nicole. And Lisa, you had a similar question like that. How do we measure empathy? Like, spot on that. So thank y'all for the questions. Keep them coming. I love this. I love taking the easy ones myself, giving the hard ones to Sandra. It's what friends do. Okay. So I put this together really quickly as an example of some of the ways that skills can be analyzed, knowing full well that this is not an exhaustive list. And then Sandra, I want you to tell the audience how they can get that handout that you put together for us that has all of your different examples around this, because you talk through lots of ways that this is possible. But there are some things out there right now that are using AI inference to look at a resume and pull all that out. Many of us in HR are familiar with that. That's not brand new. That's been around for several years now. Look at a resume, extrapolate what possible skills are there. But that's inferred. It's guessing, okay, based on how the resume is written. I could put, that I'm the world-class chef on my resume, and that AI thing is going to pull that out and think that's real, whether it is or is not. We're looking at things like training completions. We all know that when someone finishes the training, they don't always actually do all the things they're supposed to do. They don't actually have all the knowledge they're supposed to have. And yet we are inferring things from that. We're inferring from their digital footprints. Maybe we see the person answering questions on a topic on our SharePoint site, and we attribute skills related to those things to the activities and the answers they're giving, whether they Google that or they give that answer themselves, or they're creating training documents or creating materials around that. But there are other ways as well that we can be looking at this that are a little more validated. Maybe having our managers look at their people, watch them go through a task, and then give them a thumbs up, give them a sign off, saying, yes, I've seen this. We're looking at performance data, what people are actually doing on the job. We can look at an artifact and say, yes, Sandra created this. This is a suitable presentation for sales presentations. This gets the check mark. She's got that skill for creating sales collateral, as an example. We use feedback from other people around that person, and then even assessments as a way to help get to and prove that. When we actually survey employers to ask how they're really trying to validate skills, assessments ranks very, very highly. A few years ago, it was kind of middling. And increasingly, they're using those because they know that some of these other ones may not be quite as unbiased, quite as fair, quite as capable as some of those. Sandra, I'm going to jump to the next one, I think, but I'm going to let you weigh in on it if you're good with that.
Yeah, I actually wrote an article on this. I should probably mention to the audience. So EPAM has been on the skills journey for 30 years. So in addition to me hypothesizing about stuff because of my background, we actually are extremely mature as an organization in inferring and validating skills. And there are many, many, many ways to do this. And so, a couple to mention are, from an inference perspective, skills tend to come in clusters. So if you have skills A, B, and D, you probably have skills C and E. And if you're inferring, you can actually start to build a skills profile based on skill adjacencies and commonalities. Another example of validation comes from, and this is going to increase, I think, performance-based assessment. So assessments today mostly refer to tests. Tests are not actually the best indicator of someone's skill. It's more like if you give them a task can they do it? That's actually the best way to validate. And so with AI, you're starting to see these emerging companies who not only teach because they put people into context, give them feedback on how they're performing, but also send those signals as validations to the business. And that's a fantastic predictor of how someone will perform a very similar task on the job.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Anytime that I hear skill adjacencies, I know I'm in the presence of a fellow nerd, and it just warms my heart completely. Oh goodness. Okay. So I'm cognizant of the time. We're gonna probably stop about 10 minutes before the hour approximately to give time for more questions and to make sure we address everything that all of you have. I know that John actually had a question or two of his own he was excited about, like taking the advantage of the time here, just like I am with Sandra. So we're gonna plow on ahead. So I'd love for you all to chime in here again in the chat. You're being super active and I love it. One of the things that I listed there was manager observations as a way that we can validate a skill potentially. I'd love to hear from you why you think manager observations may not be the most accurate or the best only source for you to use. Any thoughts on that from those of you in the audience? There we go. Okay, perfect. We set this up a little bit earlier. Didn't mean to cue it up on bias. Perfect. Oh, manager may not even know how. Excellent. Good. Perfect. Favoritism. Yes. All right. So great answers here. Y'all are right on it, spot on it. So bias is absolutely a real risk. There's actually a great codex out there, and I am blanking on the name of it right now, but there's a codex that lists almost 200 different biases that our brains have. And so you can pull any number of those 188 different ones. If they affect how we're buying bread at the supermarket, they affect how we're making decisions at work for sure. And so you can pick any of these number of biases that potentially are out there, and those can affect how managers see that. If it's the only way that you're validating a skill is by saying, let's let a manager give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, then you may be running into, and likely are running into, some of these different potential challenges or issues with that. Now, I would encourage, my approach is we need to use multiple vectors. Multiple approaches, any different thing we can do. Let's look at the work performance. Let's look at manager feedback. Let's look at, bring the resume in. Let's look at the training you've done. Let's look at other things and pull it together into one picture that shows us what you're really capable of and what your skills look like. And here's an example of some different avenues on that front. And Sandra, I'm hoping that I can get a challenge from you on this one. Every time I share this, I'm hoping for someone to push back on it a little bit, because I try to put this together with my best guess, honestly, based on all that I know and all that I see in the market. But there's always different ways to do this. There's self-reporting as an example. Yes, sure, that's pretty fast. Just pay all, give me 2 or 3 year skills. Great. But we know that people are going to pick things that aren't really a skill that they have, or they're more aspirational than today's skills that they can actually do. There's a difference in that. That's one of the conversations I've had with a lot of the companies that have like talent marketplace software. They talk about it all opportunities, like they're the same. And if I was offering you an opportunity to grow in your existing capabilities and build those stronger, that's a different prospect than, oh, I don't have that skill. Can I do that opportunity to grow that new skill? It's a different experience, a different need, a different approach. And so these are some ways that we can validate those skills using skills tests, using assessments, looking at performance data, using feedback from other people on the team that work around you. Maybe not your manager, but the 3 people on that project you just worked for the last 6 months. They can all weigh in on giving you a thumbs up on your performance or what things you could do better. Sandra, any thoughts on this one as an example of some of the ways that we can verify skills and get a closer picture on what people can actually do?
Yes. And if you said you wanted a little pushback, can I offer just like tiny bit here?
Bring it.
Yes. To me, the performance data, generally in most organizations is not actually drillable into skills. It's high level, it's generic. Like you can parse AI and get some keywords and stuff out of that, or key themes. But actually getting real data from someone's work product is highly scalable, but not quickly. And so I would put that in a bit of a different box. In terms of skills and tests and assessments, so again, it's kind of depending on how you're assessing. If it's a test, super scalable. Mm-hmm. Not always predictable, because just because somebody knows something in this kind of laboratory context doesn't mean that they can apply it or will apply it on the job. So I think it really depends on how you're defining that. But the thing that EPAM, after 30 years of doing this, is still working on is exactly this problem. How do you get high quality data at scale? And we have not cracked that code, but and I don't know that we will ever crack it. But if we do, I think it's going to be through AI-enabled, authentic skill validation in the context of work environments.
Excellent. Hey, I love it. I'll take pushback all day long. And I appreciate the perspective on that because again, you're doing it. That's the reason that you're here today is to talk about some of those experiences, some of the ways y'all are approaching this, some of the lessons learned. We tried this, didn't work. Now we're doing it this way because it seems to be working better. All that good stuff. As a data-driven person, that's always important to me to know some of those sorts of things. So excellent. Goodness. All right. I'm having so much fun over here. Okay. I want to talk about this last piece that we're going to talk about in the last 10, 15 minutes we have here is some of the value, some of the benefits of having a skill strategy that is not just a strategy period, but a strategy that's successful. One of the things that stunned me is when we actually surveyed, 2 years ago now, in our learning survey, the same survey that we're talking about today, we asked leaders, how are you making sure that your people know what skills are important to be building on the job? How does Sandra know? How does Ben know that the skills they're building today matter to the company, to the long-term vision? And they said, well, we're telling managers and they're supposed to pass that on. And then we asked the workforce, how do you know what skills are important for you to be developing? And the majority of workers said, I got to figure it out all by myself. And so we have to bring them along this journey. I've used that terminology specifically because this is not a destination we're going to end up and magically be there. Sandra, 30 years on the journey, continuing on this. It's an evolution always. And so as you all are working through that journey, that was so hard as a Southerner to say you all, as y'all are working on this journey, we're going to give you some ideas on what to think about on that front and some questions maybe you should ask, questions you should be answering. Like, what are you trying to accomplish with this? Are you doing it because it's in the headlines? Because this publication said it's important? Because this research said that this matters? Are you doing it because your leadership says we have this problem and you see skills as the way to solve that? You see skills as the way to get a layer deeper than just we need another person on the team, but we need this skill to solve that problem that our customers are really bothered by. And if we could solve that, we could increase revenue by 2x. It's that simple. Right? How is this understanding and awareness of skills helping our company be more reactive and responsive to challenges, be more proactive overall in thinking about how we're competing in the marketplace? How do we get those leaders to buy into this and our workforce to buy into this? Sandra, I want to kind of put you on the spot for this one. What is the workforce sort of perspective on skills at EPAM? You talked about the leadership side of this. You have big plans, you have strategies around it. The workforce, if I'm just an average person in the company, how do they see skills and how do they understand how that fits into the bigger picture?
So I get asked a lot a related question, which is how many people leave, right? If skills are so transparent and we make performance decisions based on verified skills, what does that mean? How high is our attrition? What's maybe remarkable is that our attrition is half of our competitors. People come to EPAM, they stay at EPAM, they come back to EPAM because we're using validated, this is very important, skills data, and we're helping it all, we tell them, what skills they need, what skills they have. We give them, support for growing those skills. And it creates this kind of, it's not a meritocracy. It's not a perfect system by any means. But people buy it because they want to be evaluated on their skills versus someone's biased opinion of them or how closely related they are to an executive. They want to have people understand them and see their value and then do an amazing job of helping them optimize their skills and their connecting their skills to their job on an ongoing basis. So people at EPAM love the skills thing. It's our currency. It's also our culture. So it's you kind of have to, because this is how we all roll. And I'm certain that there have been people who have left EPAM in the past. No one I talk to knows any of them. There, no data have shown this ever. I'm sure it happens, but we don't know about it. And I think that says a lot.
When you say currency, the thing that pops in my head is we look across the aisle at our friends in finance, and they can tell you like about anything, like to the nitty-gritty details of the books of the business, right? The cost, the expenses, like to terrible detail that will make our eyes bleed. But we don't have that same level of detail into the skills of our people at the same time. Like we don't have that same rigor around some of that. And you can argue it's harder. Yes. Hard things doesn't mean they shouldn't be done. It just means that it's harder to do them. So thank you for sharing on that one, because I will always like to hear about the other side of it. I share some of the data from the research, which as y'all are doing this, I wanted you to share the vision on the workforce side of that, because it's so powerful. One of the things, I'm not usually in most conversations, I'm not the one that talks about risk. I don't talk about that usually because that's just not how my brain is wired. But when I mentioned earlier, I worked for a company in the government contracting space when I was an HR leader. And one of my best friends there, I'd hired him right out of the Marines. He was working with us as a program manager. And he talked about risk all day, every flavor of it, the people risk, the process risk, the suppliers and contractors, like all of these different types of risk. He talked about that every day. It's all he ate, slept, and breathed. And when I think about this conversation around skills, for me, part of it comes down to if we don't know those things, we run a real risk. I talked to an organization not too long ago. They're a financial services company, 40,000 employees. And we're talking about some projects they were trying to staff up, and they were running short. They ran out of people that they could tap that they knew were capable of doing that. And so I said, okay, well, out of your entire workforce, how many of them do you have some idea what their skills are so you know which ones you can tap into next? They said, out of 40,000 people, we know about the skills of about 10%. I said, this payroll period, you paid 36,000 people. You don't know what they can do beyond their current job title. They didn't even know their last job title, even to infer something from that. They only knew their current job title. And that's a reality for so many companies. And that you have to imagine that creates some level of risk for those companies. If we have unclear data in our sales pipeline, if we have messed up data in our financial systems, those create risk for us. So why not this same thing when it comes to the skill side of that? Not knowing our people, not knowing our talent is a risk. It's a risk of doing something wrong. It's a risk of stepping over a perfectly good person that's like got their hand raised, pick me. We step over them to hire because we didn't know that they were interested in that. The aspirational side of this, the capabilities they have, all those sorts of things. So some of the ways that skills can drive outcomes. For me, my heart's in HR. My heart's always been in HR. So those on that side of it always get me excited. Hiring to find the right skill to fill this gap, looking at developing and growing that skill to be able to solve that problem we have for business, thinking about moving people into business and helping them find the role that brings out their best in creativity and effort. Yes, absolutely all day. But we also see these other areas of the business. Having the right skills on the sales team means that they're able to succeed and excel. One of my good friends was a chief learning officer for a healthcare company. And the head of sales came and said, listen, we're going to spend about $500,000 on some sales training. He said, whoa, okay. What are you trying to do? Well, we're trying to increase sales in this area. He said, well, why? Well, because of this. And so he kept asking why, got down to the layer of it mattered if they had this skill or not, basically. That's what it came down to. He said, well, let's look at who doesn't have that skill and we'll train those people on that. And it ended up costing about $50,000 instead to train that group of people that didn't have the skill. And they got basically the same result out of that as they would have spending all of the money trying to get everyone trained up, because he could actually see the skill and it got down to that level. So often we get asked to do training when training's not really the answer to the problem. So in all these other areas as well, Sandra, I don't want to shortcut you. Which one of these are you most excited about? Or which one of these do you love talking with your team about at EPAM about some of the ways that skills hook into the business? Or is there another one not even represented here? What are your thoughts on this one?
I think the biggest one, so AI is going to come, and that's a big piece. But I think at the end of the day, what skills does for an organization is helps to, achieve the holy grail, which is business agility. If you understand the skills of your people, you understand the tasks of your business, and you can match people to that through hiring, through mobility, through learning, through performance management. Like what it creates is a system where as your business changes, as your strategy changes, as technology changes, as your competitive set changes, you can quickly and effectively realign the human capital of your organization to drive the new direction. That to me is the biggest thing. And when I ask EPAM leaders, why do we still do this? That's always the answer.
Goodness. I love it. I told you I had you here today, partially to hear your story for the audience and partially for my own benefit, because I love hearing some of the ways y'all are approaching this. And it's such a joy to hear about some of the opportunities that all of us have and to see someone who's a little farther down the path. So thank you for sharing your story there. John, you're here with us. I am excited because we're going to take some questions. We're going to hear some of the audience inputs, all that good stuff. Welcome back to the stage.
Thank you. And wow, the energy that you two have exerted in the last 52 minutes is just unbelievable. I think we need a part two of the two of you together on this for sure. I do have one question, one of my personal questions that is kind of tied to what you were just talking about, Sandra. Being focused on modern performance management, we're about to release a skills inference tool that will feed every talent profile in the organization. And I was curious, when you think about performance data, since you've been thinking about this for so many years, what is the performance data that will best help a person understand the skills they have? What performance data will really feed that, remove the bias in your mind?
So first of all, validating skills is you have to have lots of data sources. Like no one data source is going to solve your problem because every data source is challenged in some way. So it's about getting a signal from noise, right? You need a bunch of them. I think in general, the most valuable ways to use performance data or collect that information is by drilling down to the skills and the tasks. So like we talk about skills here, skills is only half of the coin. The other half is understanding the work to be done, right? So we need both. But the most valuable input on someone's skills comes from a few different sources. An expert who says, yep, that person also knows what they're doing. Like experts know experts, and that's a very valuable source of data. Another one is someone who understands the work that you're doing, which may or may not be your manager, right? It could be the project manager, and that's true at EPAM, who is giving feedback, not overall on met expectations, whatever, but is saying I saw her perform this skill and it worked, right? The other kind of source of data are the recipients of the work. So it could be clients, internal or external. It could be, if I'm giving a presentation, it could be to my colleagues, but it's basically people who know what they're talking about, who say, yes, I saw that skill. And the other one, which is again, a directionally valuable way to validate, is looking at predicted performance based on authentic tasks that are not actually work product. So simulated environments that suggest it is the other best way to get data.
That is, and I've said this so many times as a manager myself. I mean, the manager might be the least likely person to know what the person is actually doing, especially in globally distributed organizations where your teams are created and disassembled, and it's the people that you're with every day and the experts around you that are going to have the stronger point of view on what the actual skills are. That was great. Okay, I think we have another audience question coming in right now that's going to be put on the screen. Thank you, Yutaka, for your question. We use things like years of experience, degree, past job titles as a shortcut. Wouldn't a replacement process to assess skills have to be as instant as seeing a degree on a resume? Else hiring managers would always default to the shortcut.
100%, right? The whole point of this kind of skill collection and inference is that it's quick and dirty and easy. It's not, and it's also not the be all and end all. You still need humans in the loop to look at all of that stuff and say, yeah, that actually made sense. And I will say, when you're looking at EPAM, when we're looking at a candidate, we're not just looking at their resume. We're looking at every publicly available source of data that we can get on them, right? And we have AI that turns that into a score and actually suggests questions to verify the skills during our interview and onboarding processes. So it's if you do AI correctly with humans in the loop, let me just keep saying that, the skills feedback is in fact as instantaneous and arguably better than just a person looking at a resume.
I had a conversation with someone this morning, Sandra, about that, saying they were looking at how to create scorecards after interviews were done. And I said, listen, the same AI you're using to create questions on the front end can also help you create a behavioral rating scale. You say, here's what great looks like. Here's what not so great looks like. Here's what the middle of the ground looks like. And you can score them using that. In the past, people didn't do that because it was hard to create. It's a lot of work to put that together. But AI can let you generate those and you can validate that, like that looks good, and then run with it. And at least you're getting a better number, a better measure than just some generic, it's a 1 to 5. Like, well, 1 for me is a 3 you. Like, so I mentioned iterator reliability. This is like the best audience, by the way. Someone was talking about job analysis a minute ago in the chat. Like, this warms my heart on so many levels. So AI can help us. It's creating problems, but it can also create some opportunities for us to do those things that were heavy lifting in the past, and we can get more done.
I think we're going to be running out of time pretty quick here. I have a question that's going to be for both of you. One thing that I don't think we surfaced as much is business transformation is very difficult. And sometimes it is probably the hardest part for an HR leader with a vision to execute against, is the beginning part. How do I build a strategy that gets buy-in, isn't scary, has the working components to be successful, the increments needed? I'd love to ask the two of you, Ben, from your researcher angle, like when large companies come to you, what's your perspective on the burning, pressing issues around transformation and how things get done? And then Sandra, of course, you are in the middle of it within your own organization and for clients all the time. So especially with the topic of AI, how that is working for you, but it's a business transformation question.
I'll start really quickly. I'll just say that you can never go wrong with great relationships with your leadership to know what they mean. They may say this and mean that. And if you don't know that they mean that, then you are always going to fall on your face when you try to go out there and put together an HR program, an HR strategy, a talent strategy, anything that's purely driven by your own will, your own efforts, that doesn't line up well with what they're trying to accomplish. It's always going to fall flat. They will never support it. I've been saying for a few weeks now, this is my new line for the year. Your leadership will never be invested until they're interested. And so we've got to get them interested in the work that we're doing and show how that connects in and makes their jobs easier.
I want to underscore that. Like, my thing is, you know what? It is scary. Like, I'm sorry, like to do something massive like skills transformation, you have to dig a hole in the psyche of the business. That means framing this from business perspective. How is it going to save money? How is it going to raise money? How is it going to limit our risk? Like, you have to speak and think in the business context. And then the second part of this, this is not an HR program. Skill transformation is a business transformation, whole scale. And you have to partner across the business to make it real. The two primary people are your COO and your CTO or your CIO. The three of you have got to be working together to understand how human capital and AI agents are going to interact together and help you get business done in the most effective and efficient manner.
Wow. And I did throw out a big question that could probably be a 1-hour webinar unto itself right there. We are up on top. So I'd just like to close with, first of all, thank you to both of you. And you were fantastic. And then, if you will, just one last closing quick statement, and we're going to wrap up the webinar.
Thank you to all of you for your comments, your questions. Such great interaction and engagement here. It makes it more fun for us. I can speak for everybody here on this end. It makes it more fun for us when you're engaged. I just want you to leave with this. You may feel like this is a big challenge, but they also have a secret weapon on their side, and that's you. Go out, use the things you've learned today, keep learning, use some of the stuff that Sandra is sharing out there to make yourself better, make yourself more capable, and we believe that you can make it happen. Sandra?
Underscore, like I keep saying that, like this is amazing. This is an incredible time for business. It's going to be a challenging time, but this is the time where human capital becomes a business asset for real. It will take some time to get there, but this is This is the future. So keep that message going. Don't give up. It will be hard. Find friends who are working on this, and you can, share, your experiences together. But this is a team effort. We're going to do this together, learn from each other, and succeed together.
Again, thank you to both of you, and thank you to the audience. All those questions, wonderful. There are more People Fundamentals coming. We have Empower HR March 20th. Please sign up. And the State of Performance Enablement report's coming out at the end of February. Tremendous insights from over 2,000 managers and employees across the US and UK in that report. So that's a wrap.